In this module, we're going to have an overview about policy management within EPO. In the module goals for this module, what we will learn is how to explain the purpose of policies. We will identify the various actions performed from the policy catalog page. We will explain how policy inheritance works as well as how we can break the inheritance. And then we'll also understand what is policy ownership, as well as how do I give other users permissions to control the selected policy types. Just understand that when you add any security product extension and packages to EPO, you will actually have where it will add policies already configured to use that product. Your goal is to create your own policies from these policies or edit the policies that are editable. The terms and concepts that we have within this module is, first off, a policy is what we have that is a set of rules for specific security products. So any type of products that McAfee creates, you will create a policy, and then with that policy you configure the settings for how that machine or that product will actually protect. The inheritance is the method where you have the policies that are applied to your systems. So what you do is, like with any type of inheritance, you'll assign it to a certain level in the system tree, and it will inherit down on all the groups and systems below that unless you block the inheritance by assigning a different policy. Now, assignment is how do we actually assign the different policies. So what is the method that we use to make sure that the systems get their correct policy? So you can assign the policy at a group level, you can assign it at a system level, or you can actually create a rule assignment for policies. Enforcement is how do the policies get enforced? So the McAfee agent will download the policies, and according to the McAfee agent policy, it has how often it enforces those settings. So if somebody was able to make changes to those settings, the McAfee agent will enforce back the policy settings that it got from EPO. Now, ownership and permission sets. Ownership comes down to who actually has the ability to edit the policy. They have to be able to own it. So if you're an administrator, you can edit any policy anywhere within EPO. If you are a group admin and you have been given permission to edit a particular policy type, such as ENS, then when you create the policy, you own it, and no one else except the administrators can actually edit your policy. As we discussed, policies are a set of rules for our different security products. They reside in the policy catalog, and they're managed on a product-by-product basis. When you go into the policy catalog, you click the product menu to see what are the policies that you have available for that particular product. If a policy has multiple types of policies, it's further filtered by the category. The categories vary for each product. So some products have multiple policy categories, while others just maybe have one. Notice that there are two types of default policies for managed products. You'll have a read-only McAfee default policy and a my default policy that you can edit. Always remember, you cannot rename, edit, or delete the read-only policies. So the read-only policies are always assigned at the global root. I can duplicate the read-only policies and then customize them as to what my needs are. I can change, rename, duplicate, edit, export any of my custom policies, and I can also duplicate an existing policy or click the new policy button and create a policy that way. When you open an existing policy or create a new policy, the policy settings are organized by different tabs, which will click on those tabs to view and define the settings for that particular tab. And we will look at those settings later on in this module. In review of the inheritance, always remember I assign it generally at the group level, and then what it will do is it will inherit down on all the children groups underneath that particular group and all the children of those groups. Typically, you want to assign your policies at the top level and then maybe change the assignment through inheritance at the bottom. In this screen, you'll see that what I can do is break the inheritance for that particular policy that was assigned at my organization by clicking on the Test Systems group, selecting the Assign Policies tab, edit the assignment, and I can change and select a different policy. And with that change, then I'm breaking the inheritance, and the systems from there down only get the policy settings that are assigned at the test systems. This gives you a lot more granular control within your environment. How policies are enforced is when the McAfee agent talks to your EPO server or agent handler. What it will do is it will download the policy. It stores it locally. It's all encrypted. It's under a hidden directory so the end users cannot see that. And then what you have is for the McAfee agent policy, you actually define the settings for how often it enforces the policy. It doesn't have to talk to the EPO server to continue to enforce the policy. Because it has its policy stored locally, it will continue to enforce the policy at every policy enforcement interval by default. Now, if you go in and I make a change on a policy, and let's say I send an agent wake-up call to my managed machine, he talks to your server, he downloads the new policy settings. What it will do is right at that point, he will enforce the policy after he has downloaded and has combined it. With the policy ownership and permission sets, this is how we can determine who can actually create and manage the policies. Always understand that no one can actually modify or delete a policy unless you are the creator. The administrator by default has the ability to edit and delete all policies. When you go in and you create your permission sets, you can give other users rights to create and manage the different product policies. But if I am not a person who has the permission set to be able to change the ownership, you have to talk to the administrator so that they can go in and assign more than one owner to that policy. So the idea is the fact that, let's say if someone was away from the office and I needed to edit their policies, instead of me going through the process of duplicating the policy and then having it where now I own a policy that's a duplicate of that one, you can just talk to the administrator and have them say, go in and actually assign you ownership of that same policy. But be careful when you're assigning this, because anyone who makes the changes to those policies, those changes apply to all systems that are going to get the policies. So best practice, you might want to duplicate the policy so that I'm actually the owner and then assign the policy. But be careful with that, because then you could have way too many policies that are alike, and you could have just an overwhelming amount of policies, and it makes things unmanageable. Within the EPO interface, we have these different policy options. The policy catalog is the central location for me to create and manage all of my policies in, along with the default policies. The policy assignments is where it will automatically take me to the system tree with the policy assignment tab, where I can actually go and assign my different policies. The policy assignment rules is where I can reduce the overhead of managing the different policies for my individual users or systems by having a specific criteria set that if those people have to have those specific policies, I can have that policy assignment rule follow them and go along with them wherever they are, or you can have it be assigned by systems. Now, the policy comparison is where I can go in and I can take two policies and compare the settings to see what's different. And it's a good way for you to be able to see, do I have a lot of duplicate policies that are actually configured the same way, and I can eliminate some of them. The client task catalogs and the client task assignments and client task comparison, even though it's under the policy settings, has nothing to do with really the policies at this point. In the policy catalog, this is the section where I have a centralized location to create and manage my policies. In this figure, we can see the key controls that are highlighted within this interface. So if you'll notice, you have the new policy, you have the enforcement status, you have the columns and export format, you can see who is the owner, you can see where they are assigned, and you can also see what actions are supported. In this table, you can see what are the different definitions of the controls that we have within that interface of the policy catalog. So if I want to create a new policy, you can click on the new policy button. I can see the product enforcement status, whether or not I have a machine that's not enforcing a policy. The default is that it is enforced. I can import and export the policies out. So let's say if I created a policy on another EPO server, I could have exported it out of that server and then I can import it into this EPO server. All of the policies are written in XML, which makes that very simple. You have the name column where I can go in and see what are the names of my policies. We have the categories, so you can see what category this policy applies to. I can also see who is the owner, and if I have the ability, I can actually go in and change who is the owner. The assignments and rule assignments columns is where I can actually go and see where they assigned. But just note, you cannot actually do a policy assignment within this interface. All you can do is see where is the policy assigned within the system tree and also what rules assignments have been assigned. The actions is what are the links to all the supported actions on the different policies, and of course I can choose the columns to hide or export if I want to. The actions that you have available in the policy catalog are that you can duplicate a policy. I can add a new policy, which actually, when you add a new policy, you actually are duplicating a policy. So you cannot really create a policy that has never been defined. When you're creating a new policy, you're actually duplicating a pre-existing policy. I can rename a policy, I can delete it, I can export it, and then I can actually share the policy if I have another EPO server that's linked to your EPO server that I can click share, and what will happen is you will see that policy show up in the policy catalog of the other EPO server. When it's in there, it will actually be a read-only policy on that server. How I assign a policy is that you select the Assign Policies tab under the System tree, and I can assign any policy that I have in the policy catalog to any group or system within the tree. The assignment allows you to define the policy settings once you have them assigned, depending on what is your need. I can apply the policy to more than one location. So basically, just always remember, when you assign a policy to a particular group of the system tree, all the child groups and systems that are set to inherit the policy will inherit the policy from there on. You can also go in and lock the policy assignment to prevent anyone from changing that policy assignment unless they are also an administrator and they have the ability to do that. But always remember, by default, policies are inherited from the My Organization, or they are inherited from the global root. In order to assign a policy to a single system, first off, what you need to determine is this actually necessary? Ideally, you want to assign policies at the group level so they affect a large group of systems altogether. But sometimes we may actually have to have where a particular machine has to have a different policy, and so instead of going in and putting that machine or several other machines all in one group just for that policy, I can actually assign that policy directly to that single system. The procedure is a little bit different. Instead of clicking on the Assign Policies page, you have to select the Systems tab, and then you select your particular machine by clicking in the little box next to that machine name, and then you select Actions, Agent, and Modify Policies on a single system. On the next step, what you do is you'll click the Edit Assignment by the policy that I want to change. What you'll do is then you select Break Inheritance and assign the policy and settings below. From the drop-down box, you click what is the policy that you want. Notice you actually can edit the policy or create a new policy when you're at that section. You can go in and lock the policy at that level also so that no one makes a change to that machine getting that particular policy. Assigning the policy to multiple systems is a little bit different. This time what you do is you select more than one machine. You select your actions, agent, set policy and inheritance. Then your assigned policy page will appear, and what you'll do is do the same steps to complete the policy assignment page and then save the policy at that point. Now, to manually enforce a policy, you can actually have where someone can use the McAfee Agent Status Monitor and they can click the button that says Check New Policies. With this, then it will reach out to your agent handler or EPO server. It will download any new changes having to do with your policy, and at that point it will enforce the policies. You can also click Collect and Send Prompts, or you can also click the button for enforcing the policies. Generally, always remember your McAfee agent will talk to the EPO server according to your agent to server communication interval, which generally is 60 minutes by default, unless you change that in that policy. Once it talks to your agent handler or EPO server, it will download those policies. Even if there are no policies to download, it will enforce right after it's finished with the communication. Using the policy assignment rules, you have the ability to do it where it's system-based or user-based criteria. It depends on the product. Not all products can have the user-based rules. A good example of a user-based rule would be the firewall rules. So using the policy assignment rules will reduce the overhead of managing numerous policies for individual users or systems that meet a specific criteria while maintaining the more generic policies across our system tree. The system-based rules include only system-based criteria. For example, I can have a policy assignment rule that is enforced for all Exchange servers on my network based on the tags that I have applied to those systems, and also where they are in the location in the system tree. Just understand system-based policies cannot include any user-based criteria. Now, the user-based rules is where I can go in and select one or more different users. I can do it by groups, but with that, I can have a policy assignment rule that would be enforced for all users in a specific group, like an engineering group. Then I can create another policy assignment rules for members for my IT department, so basically those people can log on to any computer in the engineering network with the right access that they need to troubleshoot that particular machine. What you have to have is you have to have an integration where you've got a registered LDAP server with your EPO server so that you can pull the system accounts or the group accounts out of your Active Directory or LDAP. In this screen, we show you an example of creating a system-based assignment rule. I select Menu, Policy, Policy Assignment Rules. I click the New Assignment Rule button. I give it a name. You select System-Based, and then I click Next. On the Assign Policies page, I will add the policy that I want to be enforced by this policy assignment rule. I can click the plus sign to add multiple policies, or I can select the minus sign to remove a policy from the list. On that point, I click the Next, and I'll have the selection criteria page. With the selection criteria, I can actually specify which criteria I want to use. You can select the system tree location, or the tag, or both. And then at the next page, I can look at the summary of my configuration, and I can save the system-based assignment rule. Configuring a user-based assignment rule is basically the same steps. It's just a little different in the fact that what we're going to do is instead of selecting system-based, you'll select user-based and you'll click Next. On the Assign Policies page, I'll select the policy I want to be enforced by this policy assignment rule, And once again, I can click the plus sign or the minus sign to add or remove policies. On the selection criteria page, the options that I have is tag, group membership, organizational unit, or user. But remember, I must have a registered LDAP server that has been registered with the EPO server. Then I can click Next, review my configuration, and then I save. If you'll recall, I can go in and in EPO I can see where the policies have inheritance that is broken. So I can reset this inheritance by clicking the Edit Assignment and reset it there, or I can click on the one doesn't inherit or two don't inherit, and I can also reset the inheritance there too. There's more than one way to do this. There is no exact process you have to do, except that I can go in and look at this assignment. I can see that one doesn't inherit or more than one does not inherit. I can reset the inheritance so that now the systems will inherit the correct policy that you want them to have. We have another nice feature that you can use within EPO is where if I have a whole bunch of policies that are assigned at a certain level within the system tree, I can actually go in and select the actions and select Copy Assignments, select the product that I want to copy, and then go to the next level of the tree where I want them to be assigned, select Actions, and then select Paste Assignments. And that's an easy way that I can take a whole list of assignments that has to do with the different products and assign them all at once. In this feature, you can actually go in and export all of the assignments. This is highly recommended that you do this on an ongoing basis, because if you have this policy assignment export saved, you can always get your policies back if, let's say, someone went in and they deleted the extension. So if I have where a person deleted the extension for a particular product thinking, oh, I want to upgrade that particular product to a newer extension, and they selected, oh, let's delete this extension, and they didn't understand importing in the new extension will just overwrite the other one, they just deleted all of your policies. But because I exported this out, you can actually have where that's saved, that all I have to do is add the new extension and then go back in and import the policy assignments that you exported out, and all of the policies are back and they are assigned where they were assigned before. There is also another setting that you can use that's on a server settings that you can make sure that if somebody did delete an extension, all the policies will still be saved in the database of the EPO server database. In this slide, we're showing you how do you go in and actually import the assignments that you had previously exported out and saved. When you do this, you select the policies you want to import. If you have any policies that are in conflict, you will actually see them in red, and so you can remove that and just only import the ones that you want. The policy comparison feature is an excellent feature for me to go in and compare two policies. Many times in the past, what you would have to do is go in and open each policy one at a time, write everything down, and then have to do your own comparison of what is different. Now I can actually go in, select what is the product, what is the category, and then select the different policies. You can only compare two policies, but what it will do is it will tell you how many settings are the same, how many are different, and you have like a little virtual highlighter that highlights the different settings. You can also basically print this to a file where I can go in and look at those different changes in another interface. Check your understanding. Multiple choice. Choose the correct answer. To assign a policy to a single system, go to, is it the assignment rules page? Is it the policy catalog page? Or is it the system tree page? If you answered C, then you are correct. Always remember, to assign a policy to a single system, you have to go to the system tree page. Check your understanding, true or false. Use caution before breaking policy inheritance. Once inheritance is broken, it cannot be reset or restored. Is that true or is that false? That is false. Always remember I can go back and I can reset the inheritance. Check your understanding, fill in the blank. By default, policies are assigned to manage systems by... If you said inheritance, you would be correct. Some people may say, well, actually, can't I go in there and click the machine and assign the policies? That is true too, but always remember, managed systems basically gets it by inheritance by default. So check your understanding, true or false. You can manually check and enforce policies using the Agent Status Monitor. Is this true or false? The answer is true. Remember, you can click on that Enforce Policies. You can also click Check New Policies. In review, always remember, a policy is a collection of settings that we are going to create, configure, and then enforce. These settings depend on the different products that you have in EPO. Policies are applied to any system by inheritance or by assignment. You can always reset broken inheritance. The ownership provides the fact that I can prevent you from modifying or deleting a policy unless you are the creator. Always remember the administrator can do any of these features. Using permission sets, I can allow other users to own, create, and manage policies on a product-by-product basis. Always understand when you see the name McAfee Default, that is a read-only policy and all you can do is duplicate that policy. The My Default and all your custom policies are policies that you can edit. This includes renaming, duplicating, deleting, exporting, and sharing. All the other policy options that you may use include policy assignment rules and the policy comparison. This concludes the lecture on this module on policies.